When you go in for surgery, you're putting an incredible amount of trust in a medical team. You're expecting, of course, a positive outcome. But what happens when things don't go as planned? The time after that can be so confusing, so uncertain. We're going to walk through a clear guide for navigating this really difficult journey, and we'll start with the most basic question you are probably asking yourself right now.
This is the big question, isn't it? Was what happened to you an unavoidable complication? You know, one of those known risks that can come with any procedure? Or was it a preventable mistake? Figuring out the difference here is the absolute first step toward getting some clarity and deciding what to do next.
So, before we dive into all the specifics, I think it's really important to just acknowledge the journey you might be on. Feeling confused or concerned or even really angry after a surgery doesn't go right, that's a completely valid and understandable response.
Surgery is supposed to heal, right? It's supposed to restore your health, maybe even save your life. And thankfully, the vast majority of them are successful. But this guide, this is for those rare but devastating times when they are not. Because when a preventable mistake happens, the consequences can be totally life-altering, leading to more surgeries or even long-term disability.
Okay, so to really get a handle on your situation, we have to start with the language. It sounds basic, I know, but there is a crucial difference between a medical error and a complication. And that one distinction, well, it changes everything.
Let's break this down side by side. On one hand, you've got an unavoidable complication. This is a known risk that can pop up even when the medical team does absolutely everything right. But a surgical error is a whole different ballgame. That's preventable harm. It happens for one reason. A provider failed to meet the accepted standard of care.
And that brings us to this really critical concept, the standard of care. What does that actually mean? Well, think of it as the baseline for doctors and nurses. It's the level of care that any reasonably skilled professional would have given in the exact same situation. This is the legal yardstick that's used to measure whether a mistake was actually negligence.
Some errors are so clear-cut, so serious that the medical world actually has a name for them, never events. And the name says it all. These are mistakes so bad, they should simply never, ever happen. We're talking about things like operating on the wrong person or leaving a surgical sponge inside a patient's body. These fall way, way below any acceptable standard of care.
So, understanding the situation is one thing, but knowing what to do next, that's what gives you power. This next section is all about an actionable roadmap, a clear plan to help protect both your health and your legal rights.
When you're feeling completely overwhelmed, sometimes a simple checklist is the best thing. So here are 4 immediate steps you can take. First, and this is the most important one, prioritize your health. Go get a second opinion. Second, preserve all the evidence by documenting everything. Third, you've got to know that there are strict deadlines. And fourth, talk to an expert who can help you make sense of this whole complicated process. Okay, let's look closer at that second step, preserving evidence. What does that actually mean day to day? It means you need to create a super thorough record. Get copies of all your medical files. Keep a personal diary of your symptoms and how they're affecting your life. Write down every single conversation you have with medical staff and save every last receipt related to your care and any money you've lost.
Now that you have a plan for the immediate future, let's switch gears and talk about the legal side of things. It's really important to understand a few key facts about how medical malpractice law works, specifically here in Indiana.
In Indiana, any successful malpractice claim has to prove these 4 specific things. Think of it like a 4-legged stool. If one leg is missing, the whole thing just falls apart. First, you had a doctor-patient relationship. Second, the doctor didn't meet that standard of care we talked about. Third, you have to show that that specific failure is what caused the injury. And finally, the injury led to real, measurable damages.
And you have to act within a very, very specific time frame. In most cases in Indiana, you only have 2 years from the date the error happened to file a claim. Missing this deadline isn't a small thing. It can permanently block you from ever seeking compensation. The clock is ticking. Here's another key detail about the process in Indiana that makes it a bit more complex than in other states. Before a malpractice lawsuit can even get to a courtroom, the claim has to be submitted to and evaluated by something called a medical review panel. This is a mandatory first step. You can't skip it.
So if a claim is successful, what does compensation actually cover? Well, it generally falls into 2 big buckets. You have your economic damages, that's stuff with a clear price tag, like medical bills and lost wages, and then you have non-economic damages, which is compensation for things like your pain and suffering and the loss of your ability to enjoy life.
It's also absolutely crucial to know that Indiana law puts a cap, or a limit, on the total amount of damages that can be recovered in most medical malpractice cases. As of right now, that cap is $1.8 million.
All right, finally, let's talk about why taking action matters for reasons that go beyond your own recovery. Because this isn't just about financial compensation. It has a much bigger, more significant impact than that.
At its very heart, this is all about accountability. Pursuing a claim is a powerful way to hold providers responsible for their actions. But just as importantly, it helps make sure that the same exact mistake doesn't happen to someone else down the road.
So think of it like a ripple effect. Yeah, it starts with you, with securing the resources you need for your future, but it spreads outward from there, creating accountability for doctors and hospitals, helping to uphold high standards for the entire medical community, and ultimately driving changes that make healthcare safer for every single one of us.
You know, when you look at the whole journey we've just outlined, it's really about a transformation. It's about taking a situation that's filled with confusion and uncertainty and moving toward a place of clarity, understanding, and even empowerment.
So, we'll end with a question for you to think about. It reminds us that while this whole journey might start with a single, very personal story, that simple act of just seeking answers can ripple outward, creating positive change and protecting the well-being of an entire community.